Well, for today, that's all I'm going to be doing. The inside, the thickness is pretty good. It needs a little bit more refining. I'll go back in here when I come back next weekend. But for now, I'm going to leave it as it is. Well, hello my friends. Alfred Tardo here, the Rebel Turner. And I'm back with the continuance of last week's project. Now, last week I did the hollowing out, the shaping and the hollowing out of the piece that's on the lathe. And I posted, and many of you have said how you're anxious to see the final results of the piece. And actually, one of my friends who has been in my shop a visit, Thomas Kuzia, also commented, very excited to see exactly how removing the remnants of the CA glue on the piece. And I'm sorry, Tom, but last week after doing the video, I came back in here and I started playing with this piece a little bit, and I actually went through and I removed all the remnants of the CA glue that was going through here. So when I feel all this checking that's going through here, they all filled. I can't get my nail in just about any spot, but there are a couple of small areas that have a little bit of a void. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Rather than talk about what I did to eliminate all these checks, or should I say all the leftover residue of the CA, I'm going to reapply CA to it. So the options are to go with an 80 grit sandpaper, and with the lathe stopped, you would go in there and run it this way. But you're going to see that even running it this way, you still end up with a little bit of residue. So the ultimate thing to do with something like this, yes, you can spend a long time and sand it down, but the best way that I see doing something like this, if you still have the thickness on the piece, I want to make sure that this is dry, that it's not going to be splashing up on me. So in a minute, what I'm going to do is actually just give this a scraping all the way down until all of these spots are gone, and then sand it. And that's how you get rid of CA glue spots. So of course, like everything else, I'm telling you what I'm going to be doing, and you will see the removal and what I'm doing to apply a finish to this piece. Well, hello my friends. Now Furtado here, the Rebel Turner. And this time, better than last week. So this video is actually going to be starting off with an apology. Apology on the follow-up of the last turning that I did, that I promised to come up and show you how to remove the CA glue. Well, I did remove the CA glue and I did finish, but my recordings all my recordings got messed up and did not record. I think when I was hitting the record button, I was working backwards and I was actually hitting the pause. So anyway, last week was just one of those days, and we all have one of those days occasionally, but I had the whole weekend like that. It was bad. Starting off with not recording, then deciding to put, well, continue with the recording, a guest, a follower, a friend, passed by, introduced himself, and brought me some wood. You see it above. That part I recorded, and I actually recorded what I'm following up with today. I just did not record the majority of the other turning. So I'll put a little clip of that because it's short on what I did, showing it before and showing it somewhat without. But anyway, this friend who came all the way from Phoenix, Arizona, alright, he didn't come specifically just to come and visit me. He has friends or family that live quite a bit south of me, at least an hour and a half away from me. And he still came all the way up here to visit me and bring me some beautiful, beautiful wood. He brought me mesquite, which is what I'm turning right now. He brought me Cuban mahogany, which is out there. And he brought me eucalyptus, different from the eucalyptus that I've gotten in this area. I guess there's different species of eucalyptus as well. But anyway, inside I decided to do a little recording with the cell phone, which I don't use for recording video. Actually, I set it up and I gave it to my wife to record an introduction me saying, you know, here's my friend. And, well, that did not record either. So, that part I'm not too surprised with because I don't use the cell phone for recording. But anyway, got back out here, and the continuance of when things don't go right. The mesquite that I got was a good size crotch, would not fit under my bandsaw. So, could not per se. I started to cut on it, but I could not go all the way through. I thought maybe I could get an edging off it and make it manageable without losing its shape. That didn't work. So I went outside, grabbed the gas-powered chainsaw. No gas in it. I had no gas mix. So that's out of the way. Come inside. Decided to use the electric chainsaw, which I'll show a little speed through on this. The chain kept popping out. That's why I bought another one anyway. Would pop out. The sprocket was messed up. So could not get my cut going all the way through. Put the piece, since I already had a chunk of it off on the bandsaw, the belt on the bandsaw broke off inside the wheel, the rubber belt that goes on the wheel. So needless to say, it was just one of those days. So working on this piece of mesquite, I decided, okay, things are not going right, and I know that that's what I should do, is step away from it and come back another time when things just calm down a little bit. So this is where I was. And I started this video last week of the turning of the piece. And after taking that break and not think about it anymore and then come back at a later time, things started falling into the correct momentum. But it took a while, and it took me losing a lot of stuff that I wanted to bring towards you guys. So anyway, this is where I'm at. That's not the end of it, but I'm not going to go into all the details. It will be depressing. So rather than depressing, I'm going to just follow up with what I got going on this piece. Now this piece, I started doing the rough shape, and I decided, because of the size of the piece, the height, on what I wanted to show off out of this piece, I decided it was to put a base or a pedestal on the piece. And I think that this will be a really nice looking piece. I'm going to maintain some of this stuff that's going through here on the two halves, but the top will be fairly true. I gotta go down a little bit more until I get rid of this bandsaw cut, which was the start of my working with the bandsaw. As you can see, I got it going through here and here, and that will be the establishment of how far up I go with this piece, regardless. So, got the foot made up, but while it's in this orientation, I'm just going to work this down a little bit more. Okay, since I got it in between centers and additional spacing, I'm actually going to put it on my chuck and see if I can get a little bit less vibration on this. Speed is at 500 RPM on this. I'm going to get rid of some of this weight over here that's really getting my piece off balance and making it wobble. Well, the wood has nice grain to it. It's not easiest woods to cut for sure. It does not give you the cleanest cuts. But really, for the hardness or the hard time that it gives you, sure makes it worthwhile to the results that you get out of it. Now, I know I have turned some of this wood in the past, mislabeled, of course. And in the past, I've been guaranteed that I've been labeling this wood as mahogany. And it's not, it's mesquite. The smell is obvious now that I know exactly what it is. But that scent that it leaves behind Even though I didn't recognize it before, I did not know it since I had never dealt with mesquite, have never burned it in the grill, so I never smoked with it. Well, I want to save a piece of this wood. And looking at this, I really think that I want a nice, clean, big bowl out of this. So I'm actually going to go in here and use my parting tool and maybe get a blank out of this. So basically, I'm going to be coring a little bit with a parting tool. Gonna go with this. My angle is aiming towards the middle of this. I cannot make it round because it's not a round tool, but I will go in there with, like I said, my angle going straight in there, and I'll end up with a little bit, hopefully, with a little bit that I can use for later on for something else. Now the drawback that I got is that what's going in through the middle is end grain coming up this way. And what I got on the outside is side grain going in this way. So at what point does it change? I don't know. And I know that this piece, my parting tool, is not deep enough to go in and to meter all the way up to the middle. I'm about to here with it, and I still got a ways to go. My Carwin's on, well, it flares out towards the back, so it's not a straight tip that I can go all the way in, even though it's the heaviest duty tool that I got. So I'm going to go in there though and widen it up, lose a little bit on this outside part right here. I can't go on the outside, but go on this part, widen up the curve a little bit more, and see what I can get out of it. But it would even make a lid if I wanted to. Got it out. Took quite a bit of work to get that out because of this being kind of end grain all in here. Applying some Yorkshire grit. And this is going to be an OB Shine Juice finish, rub finish. And that's the finish that I use the majority of the time. Really the only time I don't use that is when I have really jagged edges that I can't do the full polish buff, rub buff. But if the piece is like uniform and something like this, that's usually what I use. Even sometimes with a little jags on it, and if I can get my hands in there safely, I will still use that. That is. The Yorkshire grit I use all the time. The OB Shine juice I use 95% of the time. Occasionally I will use a lacquer spray if the piece is way too jagged, or too many holes, voids, stuff that I really can't get my hands into. And of course inside of tight opening vessels, that's what I use as well. Is I'll go in there with a spray lacquer and I'm able to get a good finish on the inside. There's no such thing as like, oh, I put setting seal and I ruined the piece. No, I put setting seal, it's another step towards perfection. But it's not a step that I take. But it's a step that I'm very well aware of. You know, with this makes a nice salad bowl, even though it has this crevice in here, this little void. Should do a tung oil finish on this piece, which would make it completely food safe, but it will be a fruit bowl more than a salad bowl to me. So it will be, as I said, OB Shine juice. 1/3 part of shellac, 1/3 part of denatured alcohol, and 1/3 of boiled linseed oil, and it makes up this mix. You can also use, instead of boiled linseed oil, you can also use tung oil as a substitute, and I'm sure that you can use other mixes in there. But the original is the formula I just gave you, which is again, it's boiled linseed oil, denatured alcohol, and shellac, equal parts. Not crucial if you are a little over on any of them. It's not scientific. It's not like there's going to be a chemical reaction and your shed is going to explode. It's 2 mixes. But if you stay fairly close to those measurements, your finish will be pretty nice. You don't have to worry about, you know, oh, I don't have a measuring cup, oh, I don't have this. You just need those ingredients. And a bottle that you can buy Walmart. Actually, I marked these more or less for a reference. For you guys, not for me. But last time when I showed how to make that. I must say, this is a pretty piece. Love the coloring on both ends. Catching the sapwood on both ends looks really nice. More so on one side than the other. This one catches all the way through. This one is just on the outside. But overall, I like the piece. Well, there's only one thing to do to this, and that is to take the foot. Finish the bottom, putting this felt piece just to cushion the very center of this, and it will give me the flexibility to put it wherever center is. Center is right there. It still has the indent from the live center when I was working on the bottom. Put it up, a little bit of pressure, not too much, and you can do a slight tap if you see something, because this is easy enough for you to but because you're not touching out here, it doesn't matter if it's a little off, because you're only going to be concaving it from down here somewhere. And with that, you would not be altering whatever gap is over here. So it's, yeah, it's nice to get it smack center, but it's not, life in that, it's not super crucial if you off a little bit. You know, if you're in there, even if this is on and off, once you get out here and you start throwing it in, you're in pretty good shape. So I'm going to go right about here and start concaving and remove all of this. Slow it down when you get close to the center, if you were parting it all up with the tool. Close enough. Well, it don't look too bad. Should I say it doesn't look too bad? The wood, mesquite, definitely not an easy wood to turn, especially if it's on the drier side. What you get mostly is very fine shadings with your cuts. Or should I say very fine sawdust with your cuts, and no curls. No curls on this head this time. But the results of the cuts are not bad. You get a little bit of tear out, of course, whenever you're dealing with wood that's so brittle that all you get is sawdust and not curls. You're not shaving the cuts, you're just tearing the cuts. So you're going to get a little bit more tear out on this wood than you do on a nice wet piece or a nice piece of cutting wood like the sycamore. Cuts a lot easier than this, and many others. Carrot wood is a charm to work with. I find that cherry is nice to work with. But the finished piece, it's a nice size piece. I'm assuming about 8-9 inches wide. I haven't measured it, but 9 inches or so. Actually, 9.5, almost 10 inches. The height is also 6.5 inch in height. The bowl itself is 4, and then 3 on the bottom. So definitely a nice piece that will display some nice fruits. It does have this one void going through here, which I knew this area was very deep right from the beginning. I really wasn't looking for it to come through, but if I did not make it come through, then the bowl would be a little bit over thick. Now this bowl is not fragile by any means. When you pick up this bowl, you feel the sense of mass I kept it a little bit on the thicker side. When it's a usable piece and not a display piece that's going to be up on a bookshelf or something like that, I try to keep the piece a little bit more with mass, more that it can be handled and not feel, so you don't feel that it's going to break looking at it. The kept these two burnt lines going across, which are slightly broken off on this area right here where it's dipped inside, because that's where that inclusion is at. So I got those two lines. Base, I got one on the top and the bottom separating the base, and one on the outside ring, so the whole piece is brought together with those lines, and a couple of lines on the bottom. They're not burnt, they're just scribe marks going through here. The piece, of course, was a stump growing out this way, and it's teed off going this way. I expected to see a little bit different, something a little different, not in shape, but on the characteristics of the wood, on how it was going to go. But still, is it a beautiful wood grain? Absolutely. This is definitely going on a side orientation. This is going on an up orientation. This is end grain, yet this is side. This is end grain. This is side grain. The pit from the bottom piece goes from here and it hits here, not centered per se. And the pit from this side was out here somewhere. I did not catch it, but there would have been, if this had come all the way up, there would have been a pit going right through here on both ends. So, like I said, it's a weird configuration. It will take a little bit for somebody to actually figure out what this one used to look like prior to being turned into this beautiful piece. Well, I hope you like it, and I hope to see you very soon again. And again, see, just because you have a bad day or a couple of bad days does not mean that it's going to continue being that way. You just have to step away and come back when you probably are not thinking about other things, because usually that's how it is for me. If I'm doing something and in my mind I'm thinking of something else that either I'd rather be doing or I have to do, then things that I'm on don't go quite as well.